How are you guys? Are you well?
Doing well.
Excellent. Good. I'm so glad. It's lovely to have you. Okay, Kelvin, let's begin with you. What mechanisms can be put in place to ensure transparency and accountability in cross-border trade under this whole free trade agreement?
Thank you so much, Leanne, and good afternoon, participants and colleagues that are here today. So the African Continental Free Trade Area is one of the largest free trade area in the world. Earlier you did ask about the question, what will be the benefit of the AfCFTA, whether it's a population.
Can I pause you? When we said by people, because that was the answer.
Yes.
What is the population? What are we dealing with about?
So the AfCFTA is going to fully integrate the African market comprising of 1.2 billion people.
Look at that. 1.2 billion people. Thank you. I just wanted that answer. So, because a lot of people didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I think is so important. Sorry to interrupt you. Please.
Yeah. So, and it's going to have a combined domestic product of approximately $3.4 trillion. So this is a massive trade agreement that as Africans, we must utilize it due to the geopolitical situation that is happening now. So we need to make sure that we trade amongst ourselves, because statistics show that African countries, they don't trade amongst themselves. So this is an opportunity to make sure that we create this trade amongst ourselves. So the AfCFTA is normally known as AfCFTA, and I know it tied a lot of people's tongue. It is an agreement that has been already effected since May 20th, 2019, and it has got already existing mechanism in terms of enhancing transparency and accountability, particularly emphasizing on facilitating clear and efficient cross-border trade. So we envisage that there's going to be these challenges when we have been negotiating this agreement. So we made sure that we have got a mechanism to make sure that we are able to be within what is required by the agreement. There is a publication of laws and regulations where it requires each state party to make sure that they publish all laws, regulation and procedures and administrative rulings of general application relating to trade matters by the agreement. Let's say a country enacted certain laws that are impeding some of the protocols of this agreement. They are required to be transparent and publish those laws in magazines or gazettes, newsletters, or the websites of the African Union. You will know that the African Union has got its working languages, which is English, French, and Arabic, and Portuguese. So countries are allowed to make sure that they put the required laws in those languages. And maybe the last one, Leanne, we have got an online reporting mechanism tools. We know that when we trade, there are a lot of non-tariff barriers that countries are imposing to other countries in order to cap the inflow of goods into their market. So we do have what we call the AfCFTA NTBs reporting, monitoring and eliminating mechanism, where as an exporter, if you are trading with Gabon, and then when you are transiting your goods through the borders and there are certain non-tariff barriers that you will have detect. So you are required by the agreement to set those through this mechanism, and we'll be able to resolve those.
Fantastic. Interesting. All right. So, Johan, the policies or regulations that should be prioritized to actually prevent elite capture and ensure trade benefits reach small businesses and workers as well.
Yeah, elite capture. Nice light topic to start off with.
Sure.
To quote a very authoritative and well-known source, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And I do think we have to hold up a mirror to ourselves to understand, what do we want from AfTA? what are the goals that we need to push through in these policies. More trade does not equal more access. It very often equals more exploitation. So what do we need to do for elite capture? I think, first of all, it needs to be transparent, I think is the right word. It needs to be transparent. We need to understand how the process is developed, administered, and set out and rolled out to the larger framework. And then we need to have civil society form part of that process, not as watchdogs, but as enablers for growth, because they very rarely have a very acute understanding of what happens on the ground. So formalizing that process into a process where accountability is built into it instead of bolted into it, directional intentionality of the policies to make sure that we can actually get the benefit, the massive benefit that AfCFTA can unlock. And then I also think that what works nicely with that is accountability. Is we need to hold the people that are in charge of these systems. We need to hold them accountable. We need to make sure that there is proper whistleblower mechanisms in place. We need to make sure that Calvin mentioned that there is reporting mechanisms available. We need to access them. We need to give people access to them. And then for me, on a very personal level, worker rights, worker access, how it filters down to the absolute most vulnerable people in society is the key here. How do we protect them? What type of regulations are enforced in Lesotho versus South Africa? Are we setting up a level playing ground for everybody to benefit equally? And I think setting up those policies is something of a Disney story. And even more so is the ability to enforce it cross-border, and making sure that all of the benefits then get equally distributed. I think those policies require very robust conversations, requires a lot of internal accountability from the relevant stakeholders, and it needs to be verifiable, it needs to be auditable. People need to be able to see that this process is actually saying it's doing what it's saying it's going to do.
Yeah, and that's very, very important. And I do like the angle that you sort of feeling passionate about, is that it touches the lives of the average person who on the continent need all the help that they can get at this point, especially when it comes to doing business on the continent. But obviously what we're here to talk about is ethical supply chains as well. So Calvin, I don't know if you want to talk about that, how AfCFTA can be leveraged to promote ethical supply chains and drive economic growth at the same time.
Thank you so much. So here in Africa, we have got a lot of ethical aspects that we don't follow. For an example, child labor, you'll find in most of these countries where there are a lot of resources, children are being used in the mainstream of extracting your minerals. So those are the things that we should work against. I think as African governments, we need to be proactive and see what are the relevant mechanisms, especially laws and regulations that can be implemented, that if certain products are coming from certain regions, are not certified that they have been ethically extracted, then they should have a serious repercussions, like you ban the product not to be traded within the state parties. That will eliminate some of these problems. And also the human rights part of it. Women and youth are normally disadvantaged, especially when doing businesses on the continent. We have found out that more than 50% of trade on the continent is through informal trade, and women and youth. They play critical role in that informal cross-border trade. So we need to make sure that we bring them along in the mainstream of the economy. And I'm glad that the heads of state through the AfCFTA Secretariat, they have a dedicated protocol on women and youth that make sure that they are covered in terms of their vulnerability on human rights and some of the things that we don't want them to be exposed to as the main society that bring a lot of economic development within our societies. This is a known fact. If you move or travel across Africa, if you go to Lagos, main markets there, women and youth are the ones that are driving that informal trade or informal economy. So it's across the world. So these sectors of the community, they require maximum protection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to comment on that as well. We had an excellent example yesterday with the wage pickets. I mean,
Yes.
such a raw story, human emotion, kind of ground level community, people doing amazing work. But let me tell you an auditor's perspective of that. I'm seeing undocumented foreign nationals in a very, very, very lucrative supply chain. I'm seeing the possibility for child labor. I'm seeing the possibility to fund foreign terrorist organizations. Not that I'm saying that they are, but I'm seeing the possibility exist. Why does it exist? Because we don't have visibility. We don't have traceability, and we don't understand the economic potential. Now, I'm not saying as a big multinational corporation, do not invest in that initiative. It is a brilliant initiative. What we need to do is we need to understand that there's economic value to be unlocked there, something that has not been done. And we need to empower the right individuals to make the right decisions and incentivize them to participate in a more formal economy. Very often we see that informality is being discouraged, is being seen as a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It means you're nimble. It means that you can react to your community needs. It means that you can be close to the environment. You understand what is needed in a moment. Now, how do I formalize that to not be presented as a risk from an auditor's or a multinational corporation point of view? We need to compromise a little bit, and we need to say, what are the rules that we need to follow? What is the compliance gaps that needs to be filled? If we fill those compliance gaps, money will flow. People are looking for projects. People are looking for opportunities to invest in projects and in people that does not present a reputational risk for the larger community or the larger country.
Yeah. So we need to wrap this up, and I just want to give you each an opportunity to give us a final closing statement, and perhaps also in it, we can touch on what perhaps the biggest barriers are to implementing this and getting it off the ground as fast as possible. So would you like to begin on that one?
Thank you so much. I'm glad to announce that as South Africa, we have commenced trading preferentially under this agreement starting from last year, 31st January. And we have seen a lot of increased exports, especially in those markets that we had previously having difficulties to penetrate. South Africa trades freely in SADC region, where 95% of our goods move freely in this region. But we had been battling to penetrate West, Central, East and North Africa. But through this agreement, we have seen a tremendous inroads as South Africa. But we still have some difficulties, especially through the border crossing. We need to have a harmonized border management systems where we can implement electronic systems for customs clearance. This will significantly reduce the human intervention, especially minimizing opportunities of corruption, because in most of the ports of entry, that's what we get to experience.
Okay. And for you as well, Johan?
Yeah, I think we touched on it, and I think a valuable thing about supply chains that we have to remember, it always follows the path of least resistance. So AfCFTA is now a good pathway that can form part of the global supply chains, but we have to remember that a supply chain is a complex adaptive system. It will adapt, and we need to adapt with it, and we need to be very, very directionally driven in the way that we adapt it. If we develop a system that is going to perpetuate the current inequalities in trade, then we're going to get the exact same result. We need to include our ground level workers. We need to include SMMEs, women, youth, and we need to shape a future that we can be proud of to say, I bought that. I got that. I supported that. I was part of that, because you are. And if you don't do that directionally and intentionally, you are supporting the other side of the coin, which is exploitation. So I think ethics, we're talking about ethics. Ethics is not just doing the right thing when nobody's looking, but ethics is also doing the right thing when you can, when you have the ability, when you have the agency to enact a change. Is you need to use that agency to drive the change that you feel responsible for.
Love it. Guys, thank you. Thank you very, very much for giving us that quick fireside chat on AfCFTA, which is really a big development and something that we've got to watch very, very closely. Thank you very, very much for being with us, Kelvin and Johan. Thank you.